Hi, this is Ashley,
And this is Kristen.
and this is 1,000 Miles of True Crime. Hey everyone, me and Kristen, we just got back from Vegas. We did CrimeCon, so we're kind of on like a true crime high right now. And if you don't know what CrimeCon is, it's this immersive experience, and basically what they do is this like weekend long dedication to all things true crime. And we got to see everything from detectives from homicides, other true crime podcasts, all the way down to like Dateline anchors and stuff. So it was really cool. Kristen, what was your favorite part?
The session on genetic genealogy, the session on the advancements on DNA forensics, all of that. Othram, there was like an amazing company, and the CEO was there speaking about the advancements in the technology and how they're able to solve cold cases, and how their goal is for within the next 3 years to solve 10,000 cold cases based off of DNA. I also had another highlight of when they interviewed John Ramsey, John Benet's father. I thought that was really, really amazing and interesting to be present for.
Yeah, I don't know. I had mixed feelings about going to see John Ramsey. Like part of me was really excited to kind of see what he had to say, but I was also having I had this feeling of, why are you here? Obviously that case gets so much publicity. He's not really there, trying to get the word out. So I was wondering, but really after going there, I loved the fact that, we talked about, they really broke it down and went over all the myths of the case. So like what was being, published and reported on that really just wasn't even true. And a lot of that was coming from the police department, but also that he has some big goals. I mean, he's trying to get that DNA removed from Boulder. He wants like the FBI to take it over. He wants to use like the companies you're talking about to try to test the DNA and, hopefully get some closure in the case. And then the other big thing that he was really focused on was, and he says this is at this point, his like life mission, is to make it so that if a child is murdered, it becomes a federal case automatically. Like it's a felony, a federal felony. So a federal crime, and the FBI has to come in and they get those additional resources. So I think after sitting in that room with him and hearing him talk, to me, it made a little more sense why he was there. And did you actually, I don't think we talked about this. Did you hear the two girls behind us that were absolutely convinced he was guilty? So like everything he said, they were just like, they had these like comments, find another room. There's a lot of other speeches going on.
Yeah, I did. And I thought it was kind of funny, but I mean, everyone, they're entitled to their opinion on what they feel on who did it. So, but hearing that interview definitely gave me some perspective on how the media can really taint things, or how the media can really construe things to a way to lead you to believe it is how they want you to believe it is. So that was just an interesting take to me. What did you think? What was your favorite part of CrimeCon?
Ooh, I mean, it's hard to pick one, but so this. You guys have heard me talk about this before. I love the podcast, The Prosecutors. And when I saw they were going to be there, that was like the deal for me. I was like, okay, booking my flight. I want to go see The Prosecutors. So I was so excited about that. And we were standing there at the booth. And so it's Brett and Alice run the podcast. And Alice walks right up and she hugs us. And my heart stopped. Like Kristen knew after we talked to him, I had to like walk away for a second. I was like, you guys, I'm like fangirling at a too high of a level. My heart can't handle this. But I got to have this really cool conversation with Brett. And he is huge into like the Dyatlov Pass case. So I brought that up. They also covered John Ramsey. And my whole plan for this week was to cover the Casey Anthony case. And I really wanted to look at that in regards to like, why isn't she in jail? Like, really? I don't know if anybody else has that question, but I just don't understand it. So I wanted to look at it from that perspective, like what legally happened, like what made the jury not be able to convict her. And so I was telling him that I really wish you guys would cover this case. I wish you'd covered it already, because like you would just explain it. Okay, they're prosecutors, right? So that's the whole concept, is they really break things down and they explain, it per the law, this is why X, Y, and Z is happening. And they explain a lot of that. And so like after begging and pleading, he was like, look, all I'll say is if you wait a little bit, then your wish might come true. There's a good chance your wish will come true. So I'm not giving you guys any insider scoop. That was not a promise, but I'm hoping that that was foreshadowing. And so I've decided to go ahead and put the Casey Anthony case aside. And so I think we decided there last weekend that I didn't have a case to cover this week.
Well, you obviously have a case to cover this week.
Yeah, I promise. I promise I'm not just gonna like tell you guys about CrimeCon the whole time. I'm like, here, day one. No, but another thing that happened was, so I don't know all of our listeners, if you guys are familiar with Payne Lindsay, that's like, honestly, I would say out of true crime, like I still think it's a bit on the true crime spectrum, but he does this podcast, Radio Rental, and I think it's like my overall favorite podcast. Like it actually terrifies me. So I'm a huge fan of everything that he does, but he actually started with this podcast, Up and Vanished. So if you guys haven't checked that out, that was like the third podcast I ever listened to when I started podcasts, and it was just so beautifully done. And so we actually got to see a panel there where he was speaking, and then there was two other gentlemen talking about the trial of Ryan Dukes. So with that, it was like the attorney Philip Holloway, and then the private investigator on the case, Dr. Maurice Goodwin. And because we're fresh off of hearing them talk about this case, and it just so happens that this week they started the trial for Ryan Dukes. They're actually going through right now, and they're trying to select the jury, and they're going through all that. I decided it would be the perfect time to cover the Tara Grinstead case.
Great. Now, I don't know anything about this case, so I love these surprises. So give us more.
Yes, so let's dig in. So this was one of the biggest mysteries of South Georgia. And let me tell you how this former beauty queen just vanished. On Monday, October 24th, 2005, Tara Grinstead students, so she had an 11th grade class. They go into class and the room's still dark. They're really confused. And Tara is a dedicated teacher. She loves her job. This is not like her. She really cares about her students, to the point that even her students are concerned. They're not just like taking advantage of the fact that there's no teacher in their first period class. They're concerned. They go right down to the principal's office and they're like, hey, our teacher's not here. And the office right away, they're not like, oh, here goes Tara again. They're concerned. They know this is not like her. They're trying to call her. They can't get a hold of her. So they even start, trying her family, her friends. No one's able to get a hold of her. And so pretty quickly they call the police, and the police go out immediately. So Chief of Police Bill Hancock was the first one on site, and gets on site and he finds that her car's sitting there, and it's unlocked, which is actually, we're going to find out later, is really rare. Her family and friends all say she always locked her doors. So like, even if she was just running in her house because she forgot something, she would lock her doors. So they find that that's strange. He also notices as he's walking up the steps towards her front door that there's a latex glove sitting there, which is definitely, it's kind of concerning. That's not something you normally see in someone's front yard. But other than that, outside, he's not really seeing anything. He notices he's trying to open the door after knocking and it's locked, but he notices that there's like a business card in the door. So it turns out that she's really close with her neighbors. They try to keep an eye out on her, and they actually even have a key to the house. So they bring the key over and let the cop in. So he gets in there, and when you first walk in, everything looks normal. There's nothing too alarming. He said that he kind of felt like he was just waiting for her to like pop up and like come home at any point. But then you get into the bedroom and things are a little more questionable. So for example, she's got an alarm clock and it's not on the nightstand anymore. It's like fallen, it's under her bed. They're not able to find her purse or her keys, but her cell phone is sitting there on the charger. So she left her cell phone, and then they actually find the home phone in the bathroom. It's on the bathroom floor. And Also, they can see that her bed was not made, so you could tell she had laid in it. And the other thing that they find is her dog Dolly, that she absolutely loved, has now been sitting in this house. It looks like for a couple days, and they know there's no way, like even if she was running off, she would not leave her dog. There's no way. So that's when they really get concerned.
The cell phone thing, I feel like would also, like, that's a huge red flag, because who goes anywhere without their cell phone, even if it's for 5 minutes?
And it's 2005, but I think even in 2005, like you really still already didn't go anywhere without your cell phone. I mean, it's not like an iPhone, so you weren't quite as reliant on it, but people had started texting. There was like T9 out there. So, but yeah, I mean, her family was concerned. They weren't like, oh, this is a case, she always leaves her phone behind. No, they knew that was weird. And it's a small town, so everyone comes out to help try to search for her, and they really don't find any more clues. And I think I don't want to say one of the worst things about the case, but you always hear about like the first 48. Well, they don't know kind of when she was missing. When they backtrack, they realize it's been about 48 hours since anybody's seen her. So it's now the first 48, they're just being alerted that she's even missing. So they backtrack to kind of figure out what was she doing the last time she was seen. So on that Saturday, so it's October 22nd, Tara had all of these girls over, and they're preparing for the sweet potato pageant that morning. So, it's so adorable, right? So she was in pageants. That's how she paid for school, and she did good at it. She made it all the way to the Miss Georgia pageant. So after she retired from pageants, she decided, hey, I love this so much, I'm going to actually coach girls on it who are doing pageants as well. So she had all these girls there, they're getting ready, they're doing their hair. This is how we know for a fact, like that morning her bed was made. And the pageant actually started at about 3. So they head over, it's a couple towns over, and they're there until about 7:25. And that's when she walks out with one of her, I don't want to call it students, but one of the girls that she's coaching who is in the pageant. She walks out with her, and she had said, hey, I'm actually heading back to Ocilla. So that's where she's from. And she's going to attend her superintendent's barbecue. And so just to talk about Ocilla for a second, it's located in rural South Georgia. So it's about 180 miles south of Atlanta, and the population is around 3,000. So everybody kind of knows everyone. It's one of those gossipy kind of areas. And she actually, on the way to go to this barbecue, she stops and she talks to her landlord's son. And she's only there for about 15 minutes. She doesn't even go in. They have this like conversation sort of by the curb. And it's not clear to me ever. I couldn't really find anything. What was this conversation about? Is this just a friend? Is this more than a friend? It sounds like this wasn't over rent or anything. But she makes that stop. She's only there for 15 minutes, and then she heads to this barbecue. And she's there with all her coworkers. This is the superintendent's house. She's having a good time. According to everyone else, they're not noticing anything. There's no red flags. Even looking back, they weren't like, she did seem nervous, nothing like that. And around 11 o'clock, she says, hey, I'm going to head home. I actually need to go review this tape from the pageant from the night before. So she heads out, she says goodbye, and that's the last time anyone ever sees her again. And the tape actually comes up because the cops are never able to find this tape. So they're not sure, was there a tape? Did somebody take the tape? Or was this just an excuse to leave? Like, hey, maybe she just wanted to go to bed and she didn't want to be rude. She probably got up early that morning. Or was she going to meet somebody? Nobody's really sure what happened and what she was going home for. So the chief, though, he understood the severity of this case, and he immediately called in the GBI, so the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, and they started investigating. And so I mentioned that glove they found. There was some DNA on it. Back in 2005, they had some issues really identifying the DNA. It'll come up later in the case, though. Eventually, they will be able to identify some things on there. We know for a fact Tara's DNA is on there, which again is definitely probably not a good sign, I'm guessing, unless she uses them daily. And So they go back, and if you remember, there's like a business card or something in the door, and they notice that it's for a cop, which is sort of weird. Why is there this card from a cop sitting there, especially in this weird circumstance when she is missing? And it turns out that it's this guy, Heath Dykes, and he's a detective from Derry. This is about like an hour and 15 minutes away, and he had driven all the way there to check on her because he's a family friend, allegedly, and apparently her parents have been trying to get a hold of her, and they had let him know, like, hey, for some reason we can't get a hold of her. So he had driven all the way there. Now, he tells the cops when he got there, he didn't see this glove. And apparently the cops think this should be pretty obvious. He should have been able to see this glove. But there's also all these rumors going around that maybe this guy is a little more than just friends with Tara. And he is a married officer, but nobody's officially came out and said that anything was going on. But yeah, she has a friend who comes out and does kind of like speculate that they were really, really close. But the cops kind of end up ruling him out. And the other strange thing though was he actually called her like 20 times. So again, I feel like if some family friend of mine, if I go not missing, but you just can't get a hold of me for 24 hours, they're probably not going to call me 20 times. So definitely some suspicious things going on there. So the other thing is the cops really think maybe this was a cop because there's this glove, there's this latex glove there, and then they have no other evidence. So they start to think maybe this is somebody who knows law enforcement. Maybe they have some insider knowledge. And now Tara had an ex-boyfriend. They'd been dating for a long time, for 5 years. It's pretty serious. And he had actually just got back into town, like within the last couple of weeks. And he was a cop in Ocilla. But after 9/11, he decided like he needed to do his part, and he joined the Army. He did well. He actually became a Ranger. And then when he retired from the Army, he stayed out there and worked as a contractor, which I think most of us know is good money. And so he's kind of enjoying his life. And, Tara wants to get married, and she's like, where are you? When are you coming back? Like, why aren't you taking this relationship serious? And he's making it clear, like, look, I'm just not at a point in my life right now where I want to get married. I don't know if I ever see us getting married. And Tara does what, a lot of 30-year-old women do. And she gave him an ultimatum, and he said, okay, sorry, bye, I'm not marrying you. And they break up. So it wasn't like one of these things, like she's really unhappy about it. Her family and friends say she was pretty depressed. Like she actually got depressed before it and everything. And he actually originally didn't even tell her he was back in town, but she found out, and they ended up getting into a huge fight because she's mad because allegedly he's seeing some 18-year-old girl.
Yikes.
Yeah. He swears she was 21. So, but she was hurt. She was mad. They got into a big fight. So obviously there's a lot of suspicion around him. I mean, this is what the media focused on. The town in the very beginning, like a lot of rumors were going around this. But, he swears like we didn't end on great terms, but we talked it out and things were calmed down. He said the last time he saw her, they hugged it out. And she had left, and they'd kind of agreed, like, we're probably never really going to talk again. And he also had a very tight alibi. It's sort of strange, his alibi, though. So again, he was an Ocilla police officer. So he's going out that night. He goes to some bar, he sees this band, and afterwards, like late, like around midnight, he meets up with his friend, and his friend's working. He's an Ocilla cop, and he's working, and like, so he just kind of does this ride along with him, and they end up going, there's some weird guy, like wouldn't leave someone's house or something. And so he's seen by multiple people, like on site with this officer, and this officer stands by him. So they end up ruling him out because of this alibi. I just think it's like a really weird day to be on a ride along, right?
I would say, yeah. And then too, I mean, is this cop that he's with, is this like a lifelong friend, someone that would like cover for him, you know?
Right.
It's
Yeah,
suspicious.
it's suspicious. There's definitely people were trying to poke holes in it at the time. People weren't really buying his story, and he ended up getting a lawyer and things like that, which always makes people way more suspicious of you. But he's always insisted he had nothing to do with it, and that he had no ill will like that. He would never have done that to her. So next, we're going to take a look at Anthony Vickers, and he is one of her former students. Now, the way her sister describes it, Anthony Vickers was stalking her, and he had recently graduated, so now he's like 19, and 6 months before Tara went missing, he had been arrested for trying to break into her house. Yeah, and the cops came, they removed him. She ends up not pressing charges, but after the after the disappearance, he only did one interview at first, and that was with Nancy Grace. And there he claimed that he had been in a relationship with Tara. And
I was actually going to ask that, because was it really stalking, or, was it a relationship that went sour or whatever? I mean,
right. And he swears that they weren't making this public knowledge. They had only told like one or two people who they knew would keep it secret because obviously he's a former student and he's only 19. It's not going to look good. It's a small town. I think that doesn't fly in a big town either. But so there's even rumors that his mom busted her jumping out of his window before. Yeah, like even before the murders before she disappears, there's rumors that rumor's going around town. So definitely sounds like something suspicious is going on. And so so right away, he's like, give me a lie detector test to take my DNA. They go through my car, go through everything, go through my house. They even go through his dad's car, and they really, they don't have anything on him. And, they say he's not a suspect after all of this. And they clear him. So we'll get into kind of how Payne Lindsay falls into this and how his podcast really opened this stuff up. But eventually he would do an interview with Payne Lindsay. And in the interview, he mentions that, oh, hey, yeah. And when I was getting arrested at her house, Heath Dykes, the detective from Derry, was in the house.
The guy that put his card in the door, he was in the house when he was trying to like get in.
Yeah, so like he claims he wasn't trying to break in. He says that they used to, like, typically she would pick him up, they would go hang out at her house, what do you do when you're Netflixing and chilling? And so I think he was like kind of maybe he took it like a few steps too far. He should not be trying to break into somebody's house. But from what I can tell from it, he's young, he's dumb. Maybe he was mad. Maybe she rejected him that night and didn't want him to come. He gets there and he finds out it's because your married detective, childhood friend is there situation. And so to me, I thought that was a little weird, right?
Definitely.
I also think so are we establishing that she's no shame? Well, maybe shame, because I think you probably shouldn't be, doing anything with your former students. Yes, but I'm not going to shame anybody, because I know the Georgia Bureau of Investigations flat out comes out and says well, it's really hard to determine what's going on in Tara's life, basically because she's having all these relationships with different men. And so I'm not judging her for that at all. If she was sleeping with students, I would judge her for that. But I'm just saying, are we establishing this precedence that maybe she was really, really close with her students? Either way, can we also talk about how are you gonna go to your ex-boyfriend's house screaming, starting a fight for him going out with an 18-year-old, and
you're dating your students?
Yeah,
or old students.
I mean, former student, but he's 19. So even if he wasn't your student, you can't be I'm way classier, I only sleep with 19-year-olds. You know what I mean? No.
It's not a good look at all.
Don't get me wrong. If my ex was with an 18-year-old, I'd be mad too, and I'd be over there yelling. But still, like, you're a beauty queen. Act like a beauty queen. So basically, still, there's kind of all these rumors flying around. Some people are really convinced she just ran away. That's like what the big story is for a while, because they just have nothing. So they're kind of thinking she like staged her death or something, and you know, she just didn't want to be found. And really, they have nothing. So the case just goes cold. And in March of 2006, Dr. Maurice Goodwin, that I mentioned earlier, he was contacted again by Tara's sister, because she contacted them right away. She wanted a private investigator on the case. He was working another case. He couldn't come in. And she was so insistent, though, that now 5 months after she's gone missing, he says, okay, I'm packing my stuff. I'm going to come there. I will investigate this for you. And he ends up spending 2 full days in her house. And he finds some interesting things. You know, he's in her bedroom, and you remember how, did I mention that there was a broken necklace in her bedroom? No. Okay. Sorry, guys. I should really pay more attention to my notes. I just get so into this. So when they come in, they see this broken necklace, but they're saying like, hey, like they were getting ready for this beauty pageant earlier. This could have been anything. And he actually goes under the bed. He's under there, he's like snooping around, and he finds the clasp for this necklace. And, you know, his claim is there's no way this was just like an accident while you were trying to put this necklace on. It's like clearly this necklace was ripped off of her. He also, while he's under the bed, he finds some other interesting things. So he finds like a piece of plastic from the headboard under the bed, which to him kind of says maybe there was a struggle on the bed. And he also finds this box under the bed that had layers and layers of dust on it. So to him, it was like, yeah, okay, this is clear. They didn't even search under the bed. And he feels like they just did not do a good job on this investigation. And I don't know if you remember when we heard him talking in the panel, like still to this day, he's like infuriated by the cops in this investigation. And he just thinks that it's like totally inappropriate and they really missed out on a lot.
I do recall that.
Yeah. So he works on it. I mean, he uncovered a lot of things in this case, and he actually works really closely with Payne Lindsay which is help, you know, it helps get the word out there. But nothing happens. Like, so actually, well, like Payne's not even there yet. Nothing's happening for 3.5 years until her killer comes forward on YouTube. So the Catch Me Killer, he actually comes out on YouTube and he says to all my viewers and to the cops there, I want to play a game. Catch me if you can, because I killed 13 women, including Tara Grinstead. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you clues and I'm going to tell you things that only the murderer would know. And once you crack that case, like once you solve that puzzle, I'll tell you where the body is. So obviously the family is like so distraught, you know, they're all upset. They're like talking to the cops, like, what are you going to do about this? What are you guys doing? They're doing everything they can. The guy's like posting all this stuff about like, and don't try to find me. Like you'll never uncover my IP address and all this stuff. So obviously the cops find him and they track down this dumbass 27-year-old Andrew Hawley in North Georgia, so not even far away, and it was all a hoax. So he ends up getting charged with tampering with evidence, and I don't know whatever happened to him. But could you imagine being her parents and like going through that whirlwind? You haven't gotten any news, nothing's happened in 3.5 years, and then this happens.
And then still, like, why do that? Like, what was the purpose? Like, was it for attention? Was it for, you know, notoriety or whatever? Like, what was the purpose behind that? You know, it's tampering with a case that's clearly unsolved, and what a horrible person that guy is to do something like that.
Right. And how are you? It's like so horrible that you feel the only way that you can be seen in this world is to lie about murdering 16 women.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is he in jail now too still?
I'm not sure. I did see he did some jail time, but I'm not sure what happened to him. He really wasn't even worth hunting down, if we're being honest, right? Sorry, Andrew. I don't know. Get some therapy. You need a lot
Find
of help.
something better to do with your time. Jeez.
Yeah. So this is almost like a side story, guys, but I had to tell you this one too. You may have seen the video because the case hit the headlines again because James Hackins, he's this guy, he's just minding his own business. He's just walking through the woods. He's hiking one day and all of a sudden he comes across tons and tons of missing poster signs on trees, and they're actually like laminated. They're like kind of wrapped in this plastic, and they're on all these trees, and there's a ton of them, and he's freaking out. He's like, what is going on? He actually starts filming it and putting it on Facebook because he's like convinced there's a good chance he's about to die right now. This is super weird. I remember when I saw the video, what I remembered from it was that they actually, one of the signs up was for Stacy Peterson from Illinois. You've talked about covering that case, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so she's up there. So they're from all over. Tara Grinstead's obviously there. And so he's like losing his mind. He's like, this, I gotta get this on film. He hears somebody talking, like he hears voices. So he books and he takes off, posts it on Facebook, and right away, all of his friends, family, and people on Facebook are like, you need to take this to the cops. Like, this is really weird. There's something very wrong with this. So the cops are like, thank you. Yes, you did the right thing. Thank you for bringing this to us. And they go and they investigate it, and they find like basically the nearest house to this area of the woods. They had put all of these wanted posters. They put all these missing flyers up because they were about to throw a huge Halloween party in the woods.
That was the reason that he saw all these missing.
Yes, and it was creepy. Like, I'll post the video. It gives you the chills. I was like, I don't know what to say. I have to say, if I showed up to that Halloween party, like, I would not want to admit how impressed I am because, like, morally, this seems wrong that you're using this for Halloween decorations. But could you imagine some creepy ass Halloween party in the middle of the woods and like you're just seeing real missing persons posters everywhere? Like, I don't know. It's a lot to take in.
That's definitely a line that should not be crossed. I mean, I'm sorry. That's horrible. Yeah, like, that's horrible.
It is so horrible. And again, like it got the names out there for those people, but it's like for the total wrong reasons. It was no help at all. But I'm sure once the cops were there, they probably realized like, yeah, we took this year's Halloween party too far. And now everybody knows if you're thinking about throwing a party like that, just don't.
Don't do that.
So the families still, they're committed to this. They want to find out what's going on. They want to find their daughter and their sister, and they're putting up billboards. They've got the private investigator. They're doing everything they can, but this case is as cold as ice. And then in 2016, Payne Lindsay shows up and starts poking around because he is a documentarian, and he's decided, I don't really listen to podcasts, but I'm gonna try to make one. And he's also not like an investigative journalist, but he's going to do what he can to crack this case. So he goes down there and he's interviewing people. And I've said it, I think this is the fourth time I've said it. It's like the rumor mills down there. And that's what he's doing at this point. He's just like, hey, sometimes when there's smoke, there's fire. And he's following these rumors and kind of checking them out as leads. And this has like everyone talking. I mean, he's starting to get a ton of listeners. He's starting to get threats from people down there. It's getting like dangerous. He feels like he's getting close to something. Now on February 23rd, 2017, after 12 years of not talking to reporters or anything, the investigators have a press release. And this is what they say. Someone has came forward and reported that they have information in the disappearance of Tara Grinstead. They had enough probable cause to get a warrant for the arrest of Ryan Dukes. I'm sorry, it's Ryan Duke. So no one's expecting this. And, you know, her friends, her family are like, what? Like, they didn't even know she had any, this is actually one of her former students, but they had no idea she had any kind of extra relationship with him, like no understanding of why he would do this. And Ryan, he doesn't have a criminal history. I mean, he's not known for being the smartest of guys, but he's also not known for being a bad guy. He had gotten a DUI at one point, like a long time ago, but he wasn't constantly getting in trouble or anything like that. He did come from a really low income family and he had a history of drug use. But other than that, there's no major red flags with him. And so a couple of days after this, they then arrest a man named Bo Dukes. So we got Ryan Duke and Bo Dukes. And at the time of her disappearance, they were like best friends. They were friends all through school. And they were actually living together during the time of the disappearance. When they graduated high school, Ryan moved in with Bo. And
Wait, sorry. So Ryan and Bo were friends, or you're saying Tara and Ryan and like?
No, I'm sorry. I'm talking about Ryan and Bo. They're like,
okay.
They're BFFs. They're like, at this point, they're living together and they're super close. So Bo accused him of helping get rid of the body. And again, Bo has a criminal record. In 2013, get this, he was arrested for embezzling $150,000 from the US Army.
That's real smart.
Yeah, I have no idea how he pulled that one off, but now, so how did we get here? Like, who's this person who turned him in? Like, what's the situation? So Bo Duke's girlfriend, you know, she says she feels the heat from the podcast and everything. And so this girl, Brooke Sheridan, she calls the GBI and she says that her boyfriend, she knows that he hid Tara Grinstead's body, that he didn't murder her, but he was part of this whole cover up and that like, he feels horrible about it, but like she doesn't know what to do. And so what does Bo say happens that night? He says that night that she disappeared, they were all drinking, you know, he's having a good time, he drank too much, he passed out, and then Ryan wakes him up and he tells him that he's just killed Tara Grinstead. And Bo's like, whatever, man, like he thinks he's just messing with him. And he's like, no, like I killed her. I went to her house. I used a credit card and I said like jimmy the lock to get the front door open. And then he says he strangled her in bed. And so he came there and he's like, I need your help. You have to help me. So Ryan and Bo take Bo's truck back to Tara Grinstead's house. They get her body. Then they take her to Bo's family orchard. They bury her. And then a couple of weeks later, they decide to go back. They unbury her. Now they dig her up. And then they burn her body for like a little over 2 days to get rid of it.
I'm just going to throw this out there. If you were to murder someone and come get me and say, can you help me dispose of the body? The answer is going to be no. I mean, what?
Especially, like, you're definitely not going to let me put him on your family's orchard, right?
That's insane. I mean, Ashley. Okay, we have to go further. Like, I feel like I need more information because why did Ryan do it? Like, was he like breaking into her house for money? Like, what was his reasoning for?
Well, I think more importantly, it's like, okay, so Bo's really getting to own the narrative here, right? Like,
I mean, yeah.
I think to me, it's like very convenient that all of a sudden his girlfriend turns him in and he gets to like spell out this narrative about how, you know, she got to go in there and like lay down the groundwork. Like, my boyfriend's innocent. He just hid the body. And then he goes in and he's like, yeah, what was I supposed to do? It's my best friend. I had to help dispose of her body.
I certainly hope, I mean, I'm sure that, and I'm hoping, I'm not sure, that the police, they obviously are taking into consideration that there's obviously more than one side to a story, and they lead into that, like, this is the person that's coming in admitting, that they know something about this crime. They've got to be factoring in, well, maybe they are trying to set the narrative,
Well,
right?
I mean, they want the case closed. So that's what I think. Like, they just want the case closed, and like now Bo's in a much better position to get a deal, and his family has money and they have power. This isn't like Ryan, who has nothing. His family actually has a $1 billion company, the Hudson Pecan Company.
Oh, so they got
Hudson
big, tall
Pecans.
money, big, tall money.
Yeah, and on top of that, again, small town, but his grandfather was the Georgia state representative for over 20 years. So
Ties as well.
he's got ties, he's got money, and now he's got the story. And
a fall guy.
a fall guy, and he knows his friend. I hate to say that, but like whatever. So unfortunately, at least parts of this story are true, because the cops they investigate this orchard, and even though it's been 12 years, it's extremely hard to completely burn a body, and get rid of everything. So they're able to still find fragments of like human bones. They find a tooth and right in there in that pecan grove. And so that was in February. They were, unfortunately and sadly, but thank God they finally have their daughter back. They have their sister back. They were able to, use DNA and prove that that was Tara Grinstead. So should we move forward? You want to get into 2019?
Yeah.
Well, let's start with day one, January 1st, 2019. What's Bo up to? Now, he's about to get sentenced. He's about to go to jail for 25 years for his part in concealing this crime. Well, what a better way to celebrate than kidnapping 2 women, sexually assaulting them, holding them captive, and then thank God they were actually able to escape.
And he's the one that did not commit the crime, but he does something like this right before he's about to get what?
Yes, and every ex-girlfriend, every friend out there of Ryan is coming up forward and saying like, no way, Ryan wouldn't have done this. It wasn't Ryan. Like, he has no history of this. Like, the whole town is making it clear, like, Bo's your guy. And Ryan may have been there, but like Bo's controlling this. Like, there's no way that Ryan was going to be able to do this on his own. And so what's really against Ryan, though, is that there's DNA on that glove. And Ryan's DNA is on there. Tara's DNA is on there. And then there's a third profile that they can't fully identify for whatever reason. They say they can't exclude Bo, but they also, like, they're not confident enough where they can say for sure that's Bo's DNA. So, and that looks really bad. The only thing I will say is, like, maybe he did put gloves on. Maybe he was the person there helping and assisting clean up the situation. And that's how it got there. Unfortunately, nobody really knows, but like the rumors are, a lot of people speculate, and this is like not the cops, this is just rumors in the town, that Bo could have even just planted the glove there
with Ryan's DNA, because that was what I was going to ask next, is what was Ryan's response with all of this being brought on him? Like, did he just flat out deny it? Did he say that he did have something to do with it, like, a false confession? Or did he say he had, like, what was his response to all this? His best friend basically throwing a crime on him like this.
So Ryan confessed.
What?
Yeah. So Ryan confessed. He said it was just a simple robbery. He said that he had just stumbled there that night because he was looking for money. And he said that, she surprised him. You know what I mean? Like he was just going through drawers or something. And all of a sudden she was like, hey, what are you doing? And then he claims that he just started beating her and that's how she died. So
Did you listen to his confession and did he retract it after he made it?
So they have not released the confession, but his lawyers are definitely arguing that this is a false confession. And he claims that he was on narcotics, but there's even this interview with his mom where she's like, he's on morphine and all this stuff all the time. Like he was heavily using drugs. And so they think that there's a good chance that he would have, like he was on so many drugs, he would have just confessed to anything. He was just trying to go home basically. And if they had told him like, you can go home if you confess to this, he would have been like, okay.
Oh my gosh. Is Ryan also not that bright? Because he would have, if someone's telling you, yeah, you can go home if you just confess. No, you're not going to go home. You're going to definitely go somewhere other than home.
Yeah. That's what everyone says, right? Too. Like, they're like, oh, come on, Ryan's not that smart. Like Bo's the one with the brains. But I think that, you mix that in, you mix the fact that he's on drugs. And then the fact that like, this was the biggest case in that area. Those cops, like if they even had, if they could put this on anybody, they were going to do it. They wanted to close this case.
To me, it's really unfortunate too, that when it's a situation like that, that the digging isn't done, the work isn't done. It's like, we just want to close it. We just want to get it done and over with. That is the sucky part, because it sounds like, and I need to hear more, but it sounds like Ryan didn't commit this crime. Could he have? Maybe, but it sounds like Bo is definitely a stronger suspect.
Yeah, he could have, definitely. His DNA is there. There is a confession. I think it's going to be really hard to get past DNA and a confession with a jury. But it's hard to say. If Bo's so smart, also, why would he use his truck to move the body? Why would he bury it in his family's orchard? And you know what I mean? All of those things. So to me, that part's really weird too. Like, were you really just that good of friends with Ryan that you were gonna, go to prison for him? And unfortunately, that's really where the story ends, because it's picking up right now. You can watch it on the news. And this is going to trial right now. It's taken forever. They've been having to fight for more money and things like that, for witnesses, because they need people to come in, not witnesses, but they need experts to come in, and they want to explain to the jury, like, this is how common false confessions are. This is the perfect storm for a false confession, and really put them in that mind space and try to get them to understand that. So his lawyers are actually doing it pro bono. So there was a lot of proceedings before this to try to just get extra money for things like that. They felt like, by law, he should get it, and he did get it. So now we just have to wait and see. I think this is, we'll see how long this trial takes. I'm sure it's going to be covered pretty heavily, but that's where it ends right there.
So I do have a question for you. What are your thoughts on false confessions? What do you feel? Do you feel like that someone can admit to doing something that they didn't actually do?
Yeah, I think it happens all the time. I think it's, I always talk about, it's kind of like with cults, like everyone's always like, I would never join a cult. I would never join a cult. But it's like, you'd never join a cult on your very best day, right? Like, it's when you're really down. And I think if everyone looks in their heart and they think about a time they were really down, they would do it. I feel like I kind of the same thing with false confessions. Like, if you're really at your lowest point, you've been stuck in a room for 24 hours, you might just say anything to get out of there, especially if you're not, it's different if you kind of know the system, to ask for a lawyer, you should have a lawyer, or have a lawyer's number at all times, kind of thing. That's really different. Ryan Duke did not have that kind of knowledge,
He was 19 years old. What 19? I don't know. We try and
he wasn't 19 at the time. He's not 19 anymore, but still, he's just, let's figure out, we said it, he's low income. He's, he's not like well educated. He's on drugs. Like he's constantly using. Bo is sitting there with his, high priced attorney, like, brought to him by his rich family. I think it's, it's a way they both had very different interrogations. I'm sure. I'm 100% sure they had very different interrogations.
And then their friendship in itself is interesting. I mean, maybe Bo saw Ryan as a scapegoat. Maybe he was providing him with money or drugs to keep him high and using him as a scapegoat. I mean, that could be.
Totally could be that.
I'm totally looking forward to following this case and trial and seeing what happens. So this was, very eye-opening.
Yeah, it's a crazy case. I highly recommend obviously watching the news, but if you haven't listened to it yet, I mean, Up and Vanished, it's a whole, he does 4 seasons on it and there's like 60 episodes. He goes through it. Obviously, the ending, but it's still just like good journalism. It's really entertaining to listen to. So if you have like a free 50 hours, I highly recommend it.
Awesome.
Well, thank you everybody for joining us. We always have a good time. I hope you guys enjoyed the case, and thanks for listening.